Exception filters handle errors by catching exceptions and providing a way to customize error responses. All errors are caught in the exceptions layer. An exception filter comes into play when an exception is thrown during the handling of a request. Let's code. In our previous episode, we created this roles middleware. I'm going to uncomment it to show you one thing. If I do a post, we get unauthorized because we are sending this here, which is the Express.js way. To do it in the NestJs way, you need to throw a new HTTP exception and import it, and inside here you need to add two things. The first one is the message, which I want to be unauthorized, and the second one is the code. For this, I advise you to use the HTTP status and import it, and here you have all status. Let's use the unauthorized. Now, if I do the post, I get a good looking JSON instead, with the status code and the message. Let me now comment this once again, and we are going to do error handling on our dog service. Let's now go to the dog service and see what might need error handling. The first thing I can think of is when I get all dogs, we have ID 1 and ID 2. But what happens if I get a dog by ID which is of ID 3? We still get 200 OK, which should not be the case. Let's create our error handling. This one is simple. Here in the find one, we can say if there is no dog, meaning we haven't found a dog, we can throw a new HTTP exception and import it. I'm going to call it dog not found, and I'm going to use the HTTP status to say not found. Now, if I try to get the dog with the ID 3, I will get status code 404 and the message dog not found. There are other places we might need this, such as the update and the delete. We can try to update a dog that doesn't exist, or we can try to delete a dog that also doesn't exist. I can copy the same error we just created, and let's put the condition here. If dog index is equal to -1, then we throw this error. And I'm going to copy this logic and paste it right here. Now, if I try to do a delete, it works, and there is no dog anymore. But if I try to delete it again, it will say dog not found. Such as the update, I can try to update the dog with ID 4 and I will get dog not found. Okay, but all of these errors are not found errors. Let's create a different one. Let's say I can't create a dog with the same name, and we will check if the dog already exists. I can access this .dogs database, and I'm going to use the sum function to check if the dog has a dog name that is equal to body.name. And I can say if it exists, I'm going to throw a new HTTP exception, but this time I'm going to call it conflict, and the status will be of conflict. Let's try this. If I get all the dogs, we have this dog called Buddy. I'm going to create now a dog that's called Buddy. Let's test this, and we get a conflict error. As you now know, HTTP exceptions take in a message and a code, but NestJs has many built-in exceptions that extend HTTP exception. These exceptions already come with a default message and a default code. You can pause to read all built-in exceptions available if you want. In our case, we will use the not found exception and the conflict exception. Here, where we throw the HTTP exception dog not found, we can say in these three different places not found exception and import it. And here, where we throw conflict, you can say conflict exception. Now, if I try to get the dog 3, which doesn't exist, we get not found and 404, even though we are not explicitly saying not found here or the 404 here. You might still want to use the conflict exception or not found exception and have a custom message. And you can do that. You can write it inside, so can't have same name. Now, if I try to add the body, it will say can't have same name. And we have the message here with the error and the status code. It added one more property. Let's create a message for the others. Let's say a dog with ID of, and we get the ID, does not exist. I'm going to copy this and put it in all the other places, here and here. And now we have dog with ID of 3 does not exist. And as you now know, there are a lot of built-in exceptions like the not found exception and the conflict exception. But what if you want to create your own custom exception? Since we have this code repeated a lot in 3 different places, we can create a custom exception for it. For that, in the source folder, create a new folder called exceptions. Inside, I'm going to create a dog not found.exception.ts. A custom exception is a class, which I'm going to name it dog not found exception, that extends HTTP exception. Inside here, I'm going to create a constructor because we need to access the ID, which is of type number. And inside the super, we are going to have two things. The first one is the message, and the second one is the status code, which is of HTTP status code dot not found. And inside this object, let's create the things we want. The first thing will be the status code, which will be the same thing. Then the message, which we can copy from here. And finally, the error, which we can call it not found. And there we go, we created our custom exception. To use it, you can go to the dog service, and instead of importing the not found exception, you can import the dog not found exception. And add the ID here. If I now try to get a dog with ID of 3, I get the status, the message, and the error we wrote in our custom exception. I can now remove the other ones and substitute them with these, here in the update and here in the delete. And I can remove this from here. This is a good opportunity to show you that you can add literally wherever you want. I might want to add, for example, a date, dot to local string, and now if I do the get dogs by ID 3, I also get the date. Let's examine what we have. The built-in exceptions always return a message and the status code, but our custom exception returns two more fields, the error and the date. And if we give a message on a built-in exception, it returns one more. Do you see a problem here? The exceptions are inconsistent. We need to handle exceptions in a consistent manner across the entire application. Let's create some rules. Every error response in our app should have a status code, for example 404, a user-friendly message, a code name like not found, and a timestamp. To create these rules, we use exception filters. Let's create our exception filter. In the source folder, create a new folder called filter. This folder will have a custom.filter.ts. We first need to create a class. I'm going to call it custom filter, and this filter will implement the exception filter. And we need to add a new decorator, which is the catch decorator. If you control or command click in the exception filter, you can see the interface is this. Let's copy it and paste it here. Our exception will be of the type HTTP exception, and you also need to import the argument host. The first thing we need to do is to get the context, which we do by axing the host and switching to HTTP. To get the response, we say context.getResponse. And to get the status code will access the exception.getStatus. The message will also come from the exception, so const message equals exception.message. But if you don't get a message, let's say an error occurred. And finally, the code name, let's say for now is not found. Let's return everything the Express.js way with the response.status, and the status will be the status code constant. And let's return the JSON, which will contain the status code, the message, the code name, and the timestamp, new date to ISO string. Let's take care of the code name, that is not found hard-coded. Let's create some type of logic for it. Let's get the code name, which will be a status number, and will return a string, which is the message, for example, not found, and create a switch case. The key will be the status, and here we will use some HTTP status, which you can import. And let's say if it is a bad request, we will return bad request in a string. I'm going to copy this and paste. And let me do some more cases. I'm going to copy a ton of this, and let's say the unauthorized, which will be unauthorized, the forbidden, which will be forbidden, the not found, which I'm going to call resource not found, and also the conflict, which we are using, conflict, and let's say the default returns general error. Now here, instead of the not found, you can say this dot get codename, and you pass the status code. Let's test this. In our doc service, we now don't need our custom exceptions. We can throw the regular exceptions, which instead of dog not found, it's not found exception. And I'm going to comment our import. Now, if I get a dog with ID 3, I get the default error. And to use the filter, I go to the docs controller, and before the controller decorator, I can say use filter and import it. Inside, you are going to write the filter, which is a new custom filter, and import it. Let's now try the get by ID. As you can see, we got a status code, a message, the code name, and the timestamp. And in the doc service, you can see in the conflict exception, we have a message. Let's check that one. We still get the same format. So wherever way we write our exceptions, it will always have these 4 fields. Right now we are using the filter in the controller, but it makes more sense to use the filter throughout the entire application. For that, I can remove it from here and remove the imports as well, and go to my main file, and before the app.listen, you can say app.useGlobalFilters, and you import our custom filter here. Now I can try to do a post, a get, a patch, and the format will always be the same throughout the entire app.